As one of the biggest rock bands of the 60s and 70s, there's no denying the colossal mark Pink Floyd left on music, from the early days with Syd Barrett to The Wall to today. This is the untold truth of Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd performed under some pretty interesting names before settling on their famous moniker. As revealed by Far Out, the band tried their luck with the Megadeths, the Spectrum 5, the Screaming Abdabs, and another unique option, the T-Set. As Far Out points out, this latter option actually made a little bit of sense. After all, it seemed to resonate with the band's LSD-induced sonic adventures that co-founder Syd Barrett would start going on around this time. Ultimately, however, the group decided to change the name yet again, and as Echoes, the complete history of Pink Floyd points out, this was probably due to another London-based band that was utilizing the same handle. So, why did they settle on the name Pink Floyd? Well, the reason isn't exactly exciting. As Echoes explains, the change was very spur of the moment due to a lack of better ideas, and it simply just stuck. It was Barrett who came up with the now famous moniker due to his record collection. Pink came from Pink Anderson, while Floyd was from Floyd Dipperboy Council, both Carolinas-based blues artists. As Roger Waters famously quipped, Anderson Council was their other option, which would have sounded like, quote, a local authority. Would Pink Floyd have existed without Syd Barrett? The co-founding guitarist was crucial, having served as a primary writer for the group's debut album, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, in 1967. As Roger Waters gushed to Rolling Stone, what was so stunning about Syd's songs was, through the whimsy and the crazy juxtaposition of ideas and words, there was a very powerful grasp of humanity. They were quintessentially human songs. And yet, although Barrett's songs carried that grasp of humanity, he was slowly losing his grip on it too. His unique ability to write imaginative songs was partially due to his steady overconsumption of LSD, which ultimately led to a mental breakdown. According to Echoes, as Pink Floyd's success grew, Barrett began to feel the pressures of fame, causing him to withdraw from the non-stop work. After a year of bizarre and troubling behavior, Pink Floyd replaced Barrett with David Gilmour. By April 1968, Pink Floyd announced that Barrett was no longer a member of the band. Syd Barrett attempted a solo career, giving his final interview as a musician to Rolling Stone in 1971. Hauntingly, he told the outlet, quote, "I'm disappearing," with the magazine noting that his eyes were now in a permanent state of shock. Tragically, the guitarist faded into obscurity and moved back home to Cambridge, where he mostly kept to himself. Syd Barrett died from pancreatic cancer in 2006. Pink Floyd's eighth album, Dark Side of the Moon, is considered a rock classic. It was released in the US on March 1st, 1973, entering the top 200 chart later that month. A remarkable 14 years later, the album finally fell off the Billboard 200. Along with a later appearance on the chart again, coupled with an additional 759 weeks on the top pop catalog album chart, Dark Side of the Moon spent a stunning 1,500 weeks on the charts. Needless to say, it made the UK rockers a pretty penny. Interestingly enough, Dark Side of the Moon, as legendary as it is tied in with another British cult classic. According to Rolling Stone, while Pink Floyd was recording Dark Side of the Moon, they spent their free time watching the comedy ensemble series Monty Python's Flying Circus. When it was time for the actors to shoot their first full-length feature film, 1975's Monty Python and the Holy Grail, they struggled to pony up the dough.
Well, actually, I am a Knight of the Round Table.
You're a Knight of the Round Table?
I am.
In that case, I shall have to kill you.
Cue Pink Floyd. The film's director, Terry Gilliam, revealed to The Guardian, none of the movie studios would give us any money. This was at the time income tax was running as high as 90%, so we turned to rock stars for finance. Elton John, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, they all had money, and we seemed a good tax write-off. Ultimately, Pink Floyd gave 10% of the film's initial budget of 200,000 British pounds, according to Rolling Stone. George Orwell's World War II-era novella, Animal Farm, was an instant success, with the first edition selling out in a mere month. The story revolves around a group of animals rebelling against the farmers that owned them, an allegory that warns against allowing totalitarians to have all complete political power.
Man is our enemy.
This classic tale also served as the inspiration for Pink Floyd's 1977 concept album, Animals. It wouldn't be the only time Pink Floyd took a bold social stance. After all, they would follow up with 1979's boisterous political commentary on The Wall. However, Animals served as a stepping stone for future concept album success. Coming in at only 5 songs, Roger Waters adapted Orwell's book into his lyrics and titles. As Far Out notes, the sheep are the mindless followers, the dogs are the wannabe imperialists, and the pigs are the rulers.
There will be no more meetings, no more endless debates. From now on, a special committee of pigs will decide all aspects of the farm.
As Phil Rose points out in Roger Waters and Pink Floyd The Concept albums, even the album cover of animals holds significance to the point Waters is attempting to make. Since the pigs are the rulers, a large inflatable swine is seen suspended high above London's Battersea Power Station, which was once a symbol of power in industrial London. In 1977, Pink Floyd played at the Olympic Stadium in Montreal. According to the National Post, it was the largest stadium rock concert in Canada, coming in at a whopping 80,000 unruly fans. Wayne Larson of the Montreal Gazette was actually in that crowd, near the front. Recalling the very rowdy crowd, Larson explains that the mood of the concert was killed by fireworks, one of which went off close to Roger Waters' head. According to Larson, Waters screamed, "Stop lighting off fireworks!" Sure enough, the chaos didn't stop, and according to several accounts, roadies ended up grabbing one of the firecracker culprits. The roadies then dragged him up to the stage and held him while Waters spat in his face. This Montreal concert was the last that the band played before recording The Wall, and it served as a huge inspiration. As Waters told the National Post in 2016, "What I think happened was that I was angry. With all due respect to the population of Montreal, they were completely drunk." Adding that reflecting about the moment he realized he was in the wrong, he couldn't shake off the fact that the incident didn't make him, quote, feel human. As such, Waters came up with The Wall, which he says involved building a huge wall between himself and the folks he was trying to communicate with. The year 1982 saw the release of Pink Floyd The Wall, a movie based on the band's record of the same name and one of the most celebrated albums of all time. Roger Ebert dubbed it, quote, the best of all serious fiction films devoted to rock, and the flick won 2 BAFTA awards the following year. Simply put, Pink Floyd The Wall became a cult classic, so some fans may be surprised to hear just how difficult it was to get this movie finished. In an essay on his website, the film's director Alan Parker declared, "I'm very proud of it, but the making of the film was too miserable an exercise." As it turned out, Parker's main difficulty came from singer-songwriter Roger Waters and Gerald Scarfe, the cartoonist who helped Waters create The Wall's extravagant stage show. As Parker himself explained, Waters' personality was, quote, intimidating, especially when it came to suggesting anything outside his own personal vision for the movie, which caused tensions between himself and Scarfe. According to Far Out, the animator was so distressed and anxious about working on the project that he turned to drinking, and was usually seen with a flask of whiskey. As Parker explains, he wouldn't see Waters for decades after the opening of the flick. Meanwhile, whenever Parker bumped into Scarfe, the cartoonist would shudder. Scarfe, however, would eventually make amends with Parker. The amphitheater found in the ancient Roman city of Pompeii once housed up to 12,000 spectators and was home to brutal gladiatorial fights, along with more lighthearted circus acts. When nearby Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD, it wiped out the population of Pompeii, and the city hauntingly remained buried until the 1700s when it was rediscovered. Almost 300 years later, that very same amphitheater was the venue for probably one of the most bizarre concerts of all time, Pink Floyd live at Pompeii. As the director of the documentary, Adrian Mabin told Brain Damage he chose Pompeii as the venue because he liked the contradiction of playing live in a, quote, place that is dead. Since Pink Floyd were to play to virtually no audience, the idea to resurrect the dead city came to him in the hope that ghosts of the past could somehow return. The shots of empty Pompeii combined with Pink Floyd's melodies gave it a captivating result. As Mabin told Prague, road manager Peter Watts told him that the sound had somewhat of an echo to it. Watts also made note of the fact that the Romans who built the amphitheater thought not only of the structure, but also of the acoustic qualities. As David Gilmour said years later in 2015, I don't think any of us thought it would last in people's minds for as long as it did. Dark Side of the Moon is undeniably Pink Floyd's greatest effort, with tens of millions of copies sold since its release in 1973. Naturally, with so many people listening to it over the years, fans have tried analyzing it, while others have even started making bizarre connections to other works of art. A viral 1995 article by the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette claimed that the band's 8th album synced up perfectly with 1939's fantasy classic, The Wizard of Oz.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
As the article explains, there exists a connection, no, really a synchronicity, between the two that escapes logic or understanding. The article goes on to say how the lyrics allegedly match the plot of the film, while the characters' movements go perfectly with the music. So, is there any truth to this now popular claim? The answer is a disappointing no. As drummer Nick Mason bluntly told BBC One in 2010, he finds it unthinkable that Pink Floyd would create an album around The Wizard of Oz. Mason added, "Sadly, both the Tin Man and the Straw Man and all the rest of it had absolutely zero to do with that particular record." The remaining members of Pink Floyd have famously feuded for years. Things have gotten so bad, in fact, that The Independent dubbed it the greatest feud in rock. So, what exactly happened? In 1983, Pink Floyd released The Final Cut, the band's last album, which featured founding member Roger Waters. Willie Christie, the photographer behind the album art, explained that a breakup was on the horizon, with both David Gilmour and Waters finding the recording process very tough and butting heads in the process. Waters famously left the band in favor of a solo career in 1985, under the impression that Pink Floyd, as fans knew it, would dissipate. That wasn't the case, and in 1987, Pink Floyd, without Waters, released A Momentary Lapse of Reason. But it didn't come without hardship. The bassist ultimately sued his former bandmates in 1985 to prevent the Pink Floyd name from ever being used again. According to the BBC, he declared that the band was, quote, "a spent force creatively." The battle lasted 2 years and was finally settled out of court. However, tension stuck for years, with the remaining members eventually reuniting on stage decades later. Finally, in 2013, Waters admitted to BBC's Hard Talk that he was wrong, adding, "Of course I was. Who cares?" Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more grunge videos about your favorite bands are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.